Somewhere in the quiet corners of your life, there's a voice you've been carrying for years. You hear it when you hesitate before speaking your truth. You feel it when someone compliments you, and your first instinct is to doubt it. It's the echo of words spoken long ago, maybe not even in anger, maybe in passing, but they sank into you like roots. You've changed so much since then. You've built a life, collected achievements, and perhaps even left your hometown far behind. Yet somehow, no matter where you go, the same patterns follow you. Different faces, different settings, but the same story playing out over and over again. It's like being trapped in a play you never auditioned for, but the role fits too perfectly to be coincidence. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." What if what you've been calling bad luck, my personality, or just how life is actually something much older? Something that began before you even had the words to name it? What if this is not just your story, but the invisible grip of your mother's wound? When you understand this, really understand it, you realize the patterns that hold you are not life sentences, they are maps. And the moment you can read the map, you can begin to change the destination. Close your eyes for a moment and remember a time from your childhood. Maybe a moment when you felt invisible, or when your feelings were dismissed, or when you learned, without words, that showing vulnerability meant risking rejection. Perhaps you mastered the art of shrinking down, hiding parts of yourself so that the emotional storms wouldn't hit you so hard. You became quiet, compliant, or maybe the good child who avoided rocking the boat at all costs. Or maybe you wore a different mask, the mask of perfection, the overachiever who was always doing, giving, and proving. You believed that if you worked hard enough, loved enough, or fixed enough, you could earn the unconditional love you craved. But the truth is, no amount of achievements or people-pleasing could fill that silent, aching gap inside. This is where so many of us get stuck, because these survival strategies became so deeply woven into our identity that we can no longer see them as patterns to change, but as the very essence of who we are. Yet the pain beneath them is real. It's the pain of a little child who deserved to be seen, heard, and loved exactly as they were. You might feel exhausted from carrying this invisible weight. You might wonder why, despite all your efforts, the same old fears and doubts creep back in. This is not your failure, it's the echo of a wound passed down, imprinted deeply into your psyche by the mother who carried her own battles. Recognizing this truth is the first courageous step towards freedom, because when you realize these patterns were never about you, they were about survival. In an imperfect world, compassion begins to bloom, and with compassion, healing becomes possible. Carl Jung's insight into the human psyche was revolutionary, especially when it comes to understanding the mother's role not just as a caregiver but as a profound archetype, shaping the very core of our unconscious. The mother archetype, Jung explains, is an image held deep within the collective unconscious part, nurturing, part powerful, part shadowed by wounds and fears that transcend personal history. This archetype is not simply your mother as a person, but the energetic imprint of motherhood itself, a blueprint etched into your soul before you even took your first breath. When this imprint carries pain or neglect, it doesn't merely stay in childhood memories, it molds the invisible architecture of your emotional landscape. Imagine this archetype as a silent scriptwriter, constantly writing and rewriting your story behind the scenes. Without your awareness, it influences your self-worth, your sense of safety, and the way you relate to others. It can make you feel perpetually unworthy of love, or fearful of abandonment, or convinced that your needs are a burden. Yet Jung also showed that these unconscious patterns can be brought to light, faced, and transformed. The key lies in making the unconscious conscious, naming the shadow of the mother wound, and daring to explore it without judgment. When this happens, the archetype loses its grip, and you begin to reclaim the power that was always yours, but hidden beneath layers of inherited pain. This is the deep invitation of Jung's teaching, to move beyond being unconsciously shaped by ancestral wounds and step into conscious authorship of your life. The mother wound is like a shadow that stretches far beyond childhood, weaving itself into the tapestry of your adult life in ways you might never have noticed or dared to name. It's invisible because it hides in everyday moments, the small decisions and emotional responses that feel automatic, natural even, but are quietly shaping your entire experience. Think about the partners you've chosen. There's often a pattern, someone distant, unavailable, or emotionally inconsistent, as if you are unconsciously drawn to recreate the same emotional terrain you knew as a child. Why? Because your psyche, in its deep yearning for resolution, is trying to heal the original wound by reenacting the story. But without awareness, this cycle just repeats, often bringing pain instead of healing. Or consider the way you receive love and praise. When someone says you did a great job, do you feel joy or discomfort? For many, accepting compliments feels foreign, even threatening, because at some level, you were taught that love comes with conditions. You learned to earn it, not receive it freely. This creates a constant inner conflict that drains your confidence and chips away at your self-worth. There's also the pattern of putting others before yourself, a habit of exhaustion disguised as generosity. You say yes when your heart whispers no, afraid that setting boundaries might push love away. This self-sacrifice, born from childhood survival, keeps you tethered to old wounds, preventing you from living fully in your own power. These patterns don't just affect relationships, they ripple into your career choices, your financial habits, even the way you care for your body and mind. They are the silent architects of a life lived beneath the surface, dictated by fears and beliefs that are not truly yours. Recognizing these invisible impacts is not about blame or shame. It's about shining a light into the shadows so you can reclaim the parts of yourself lost to this inherited pain. Only then can you begin to build a life rooted in conscious choice rather than unconscious reaction. Now, take a deep breath and let this truth settle. The patterns that have controlled you for so long are not your destiny. They are the echoes of survival. Yes, but survival is not the same as limitation. These patterns are not permanent chains. They are old stories waiting to be rewritten. Imagine standing at a crossroads where one path leads you back into the familiar, pain and repetition, and the other invites you into freedom. Freedom to respond rather than react. Freedom to choose love instead of fear. Freedom to live from your own voice instead of a borrowed script. This path is yours to walk, and every small step toward awareness is a victory in reclaiming your life. Healing is not about erasing the past. It's about honoring it without being imprisoned by it. It's about embracing your wounded parts with compassion and curiosity, recognizing that those parts have carried you through the hardest moments, and then, with gentle strength, inviting new patterns to grow, patterns of self-love, courage, and clarity. You are not alone on this journey. Many have stood where you stand now, feeling the weight of inherited wounds, and have found their way into light and liberation. The road may be challenging, but it leads to a place where your true self can finally breathe, shine, and create anew. This is the promise that your mother's wounds do not have to be your chains. They can be the doorway to your power. The journey to freedom begins with a single, powerful step: becoming aware. Awareness is the first act of rebellion against the unconscious grip of old wounds. It's the moment you catch yourself in a familiar pattern. Maybe you find yourself apologizing when you didn't do anything wrong, or shrinking in conversations, or choosing to stay silent even when your truth aches to be spoken. When you notice these moments, you are lighting a candle in the darkness. Not next comes the essential work of inner dialogue, that critical, often harsh voice inside, the one echoing your mother's fears or judgments, is not your own. Start asking, whose voice is this really? Does this serve my highest good? By naming it as borrowed, you strip it of its authority. This allows you to begin challenging and gently disempowering the negative narratives you've carried for so long. Then, practice repattering your responses. This is the courageous act of pausing before reacting, breathing into the discomfort, and choosing a new path. Instead of saying yes when you mean no, try saying a quiet, firm no. Instead of shrinking back, practice holding your presence. These new choices might feel awkward at first. Old neural pathways are strong, but with patience and persistence, new patterns form, and your brain rewires itself toward freedom. Setting boundaries is the fortress of your emotional autonomy. Saying no without guilt is a radical act of self-respect. It teaches others how to honor you, and teaches you how to honor yourself. Boundaries protect your energy and create space for your true needs to be met. Remember, this process is not linear. There will be days of progress and days of setbacks. Each moment you choose conscious awareness and compassionate choice, you weaken the old scripts and strengthen your power. This is how transformation unfolds, not overnight, but with steady, loving practice. Now, imagine standing on the other side of this journey. The heavy weight of your mother's wound no longer pulls at your heartstrings or dictates your choices. Instead, you wake up each day grounded in the knowing of your own worth, unshaken by the echoes of old fears or doubts. Your relationships begin to shift. You no longer react from pain or scarcity, but respond from presence and abundance. With your partner, with your children, with friends, you show up fully, whole and healed, not fragmented by past shadows. Most importantly, you meet yourself with kindness and reverence. You honor the little child who survived, the adult who grew stronger, and the soul that is now ready to thrive. This is your power. This is your freedom. You are no longer a prisoner of the invisible scripts passed down through generations. You are the author of your story, writing each page with courage, compassion, and conscious choice. This freedom is not a destination. It is a continuous unfolding. And every step you take toward it is a victory worthy of celebration. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might also be carrying the invisible weight of the mother wound. Remember, healing begins when we bring these hidden patterns into the light together. And if you're ready to dive deeper into Jung's wisdom and continue your journey of self-discovery, click on the next video. It might just be the turning point you've been waiting for. Your path to freedom starts here.